High Ambassador Kozek smoothed his ceremonial vestments and addressed the assembled galactic conclave. 53 species were represented in the Grand Chamber, their environmental pods arranged in a perfect circle to signify unity and equality. In the center stood the newest petitioners for admission, humans.
My fellow representatives,
Kozek's translator broadcast in the standard frequencies.
as is tradition, the human delegation has presented the conclave with cultural artifacts. These gifts will now be distributed for your examination.
Drones hovered throughout the chamber, delivering small packages to each delegation. Kozek watched with barely concealed disdain as the humans, 3 of them, pathetically unaugmented with only their natural limbs and sensory organs, nodded encouragingly. The Vexillari representative was the first to open their package, chittering with amusement.
What primitive construction? Some kind of toy?
The drone camera zoomed in on the object, a small folding device with a red housing and multiple metal attachments.
A Swiss Army knife,
The lead human ambassador, Chen, explained.
a traditional gift from my home region on Earth.
Scattered laughter rippled through the chamber as other representatives examined their gifts,
My delegation has received sticks connected by a cord.
announced the Trilaxian ambassador, dangling the object from one tentacle.
Nunchaku,
Offered Chen.
a training tool from the East Asian regions.
The Dorsani collective mind activated their manipulator arms to hold up a curved metal bar with a weighted end.
Is this some form of measurement device?
A crowbar,
Chen replied.
common in many human households.
Ambassador Kozek felt the familiar satisfaction of superiority. These humans were even more primitive than intelligence had suggested. Their gifts were unsophisticated tools barely worthy of an emerging civilization. Perhaps their admission petition had been filed prematurely. The Arcturian delegation, composed of crystalline entities who communicated through light pulses, flickered with the equivalent of chuckles as they held up a slender cylinder.
This appears to be a primitive illumination device.
They pulsed.
A maglite flashlight,
Chen nodded.
essential in many human dwellings.
How quaint.
The Arcturian representative's lights dimmed in what passed for condescension among their kind. The Morgan representative, a multi-limbed insectoid, examined a small plastic cylinder with bristles at one end.
Cleaning implement for oral cavities?
Toothbrush,
Confirmed Chen.
basic hygiene tool.
This one appears to be some kind of primitive ball game implement.
Announced the Phaedon representative, holding up a wooden club.
A baseball bat,
Chen nodded.
from a popular Earth sport.
The Xanthorian ambassador, whose species communicated partly through scent, released a mist that translated roughly to amusement mixed with pity.
My package contains a thin metal disc with serrated edges. Food processing tool?
A circular saw blade,
Chen explained.
for construction and woodworking.
For the next 30 minutes, the chamber filled with diplomatic titters and patronizing observations as more objects were revealed. Kitchen implements, gardening tools, decorative items, all remarkably simplistic in design and function. The Gekrell delegate, whose species had mastered antimatter containment before developing agriculture, held up a coiled length of fiber.
Some form of primitive binding material?
Paracord,
Chen said.
for camping and outdoor activities.
The Yothari representative, from a species widely regarded as the conclave's premier geneticists, examined a small aerosol container.
Compressed gas with chemical compounds? Primitive atmospheric modification?
Hairspray?
Rodriguez clarified.
Personal grooming product?
By the time all gifts had been examined, the general mood in the chamber was one of patronizing tolerance. Many species were exchanging private communications, their translation fields buzzing with comments about developmental stages and pre-spacefaring cultural relics. Ambassador Kozek raised his primary appendage for attention.
While we appreciate the quaint offerings, perhaps we should continue with more substantive discussions of your species' readiness for conclave membership.
Chen's face remained impassive.
With respect, Ambassador, you misunderstand the purpose of our gifts. Oh,
Klozek's translator conveyed his amusement.
Are they not cultural artifacts, as you claimed? They are indeed cultural artifacts,
Chen replied.
but not in the way you assume. We would like to offer a brief demonstration, with your permission.
Klozek gestured magnanimously.
Proceed!
Chen nodded to his colleagues, who moved to the center of the chamber. The female, Ambassador Rodriguez, held up the Swiss Army knife.
This toy contains 17 different tools, including
Her thumb flicked, and a blade snapped out with an audible click.
this.
In one fluid motion, she threw the knife. It embedded itself in the ceremonial wooden podium, directly through the conclave emblem, from 10 meters away. The chamber fell silent. The second human, Ambassador Okafor, picked up the nunchaku.
This children's toy
He said calmly.
becomes this.
His body moved in a blur of motion, the sticks and cord transforming into a deadly arc around his body before striking a demonstration post with enough force to shatter it. Chen himself lifted the baseball bat.
This recreational item,
He said, voice level, but somehow more menacing, can crush a skull with 1,200 newtons of force. Applied correctly, he demonstrated a short, brutal swing.
it can end a life in less than 2 seconds.
One by one, the humans demonstrated the lethal applications of each gift. Rodriguez took the crowbar, demonstrating how the curved end could be used to pry open secured entries, or with a sharp twist, break joints and limbs. She showed how the flat end, swung with precision, could deliver devastating blunt force trauma. Okafor retrieved the toothbrush, which seemed to elicit nervous laughter from some delegations, until he revealed how the handle could be sharpened against any rough surface in under a minute to create a stabbing implement capable of penetrating throat membranes of most known sentient species. Chen took the paracord and within seconds demonstrated 3 different lethal applications: a garrote for strangulation, a tripwire that could bring down running pursuers, and a reinforced binding that could immobilize limbs with damage to circulation. Rodriguez picked up the hairspray, ignited a small flame, and suddenly the grooming product became a makeshift flamethrower, sending a jet of fire 3 meters across the chamber. Several environmental pods sealed completely in defensive protocols. Okafor lifted the circular saw blade and sent it spinning through the air with a precise throw, embedding it in a demonstration target as deep as Rodriguez's knife had penetrated. The demonstrations continued relentlessly. Kitchen shears, transformed from food preparation to artery-severing tool, a golf club, generating enough force to penetrate standard body armor, a walking cane that concealed a sharp blade within, a belt that doubled as a whip or strangulation device, writing implements, demonstrated as stabbing weapons to vulnerable areas, a towel used to immobilize, blind, or strangle, a credit card edge-sharpened to slice through flesh, or weaponized as a thrown projectile, a ceramic coffee mug shattered to create improvised cutting edges. With each demonstration, the chamber grew more still, environmental pods shifting back almost imperceptibly. The Ventari delegation, composed of gaseous entities, had condensed to their smallest possible form, a clear sign of distress in their species. Finally, Chen picked up the simple metal flashlight.
This illumination device,
He said, clicking it on to show its primary function.
can also be used to disorient opponents in darkness.
He flashed it rapidly, causing several representatives to shield their sensory organs.
Or as a bludgeoning weapon.
He struck a demonstration block hard enough to dent its metal surface.
And with minimal modifications,
He twisted the base, revealing a concealed compartment.
it can house small explosives, turning a household object into a grenade.
Ambassador Klozek found his voice, though his translator struggled to filter out the stress harmonics.
What? What is the meaning of this display?
Chen returned to the center of the chamber, hands empty, but somehow more threatening than before.
The meaning, Ambassador, is simple. What you perceived as harmless cultural trinkets are what humans call dual-purpose items. Every object I have shown you exists in millions of human homes, businesses, and public spaces. Each has a primary peaceful function, but each can be weaponized in seconds.
He let that sink in before continuing.
Humans evolved as tool users, but also as survivors. We don't have natural weapons like many of your species. No claws, no venom, no exceptional strength. Instead, we developed the ability to transform our environment into weapons when needed.
Rodriguez stepped forward.
Our entire civilization is built on this principle. We surround ourselves with objects that serve peaceful purposes but can be instantly repurposed for defense or offense.
It's not just these items.
Okafor added.
Our vehicles, our buildings, our clothing, our furniture, all can be adapted for combat if necessary.
The Geekrell representative raised a limb.
Surely this is exaggeration. Your common transportation devices, for instance.
Chen nodded to Rodriguez, who activated a holographic display. It showed a standard human ground vehicle. A car, according to the caption.
A typical human passenger vehicle,
She explained.
weighs approximately 1,500 kilograms and can accelerate to 100 kilometers per hour in under 10 seconds. Deliberately driven, it becomes a battering ram capable of destroying structures or other vehicles.
The display shifted to show interior components of the vehicle.
Seat belts can be used as restraints or strangulation devices. Mirrors can be broken to create edged weapons. Batteries contain acid. Fuel can be weaponized for fire or explosives. Even the antenna can be removed and used as a whip or stabbing implement.
The Arcturian delegation flickered in what appeared to be distress.
And your habitations?
Okafor took over the presentation, displaying a cross-section of a standard human dwelling.
Kitchen, knives, blunt instruments, chemicals that create toxic gases when mixed. Bedroom, sheets and clothing for bindings. Lamps as bludgeons. Bathroom, chemicals again, plus mirrors and ceramics that create sharp edges when broken. Garage or storage areas. Tools designed for construction that can just as easily be used for destruction.
He paused, then added,
Even the structure itself. Railings that can impale, stairs that can break falls, windows that create glass shards, furniture that can be used as barriers or broken down for weapons.
Chen nodded.
We don't see this as primitive. We see it as efficient. Why carry dedicated weapons when everything around you can become one?
The chamber remained deathly silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't gifted them cultural trinkets. They delivered a message.
But surely,
The Phaedon representative ventured.
these are emergency adaptations, not common knowledge among your population?
Chen, Rodriguez, and Okafor exchanged glances that seemed to contain volumes of unspoken communication.
Ambassador,
Rodriguez replied.
human children instinctively weaponize their environments. Our young use sticks as swords before they can fully communicate. Our entertainment teaches these principles from earliest development.
The holographic display shifted to show human educational content, instructional videos demonstrating self-defense with everyday objects, entertainment media showing improvised weapons, even children's games where ordinary items became imaginary weapons.
Our most popular entertainment,
Chen added.
often features protagonists who triumph using improvised tools rather than dedicated weapons. It's not just embedded in our culture, it's celebrated.
Okafor nodded.
Some human martial arts systems are built entirely around the principle of weaponizing ordinary environments. Practitioners learn to see combat potential in everything they touch.
The Zenthorian ambassador released a scent that translated as deep concern.
You mean to tell us that any human without special training could utilize these techniques?
To varying degrees of effectiveness, yes.
Chen confirmed.
Some are more skilled than others, but the fundamental understanding is nearly universal. It's how we perceive our world.
He gestured to the gifts that now lay scattered around the chamber, no longer viewed as harmless curiosities, but as a chamber full of potential weapons.
We seek peaceful admission to the conclave.
Chen concluded.
We bring trade, culture, and scientific exchange. But we thought it important that you understand, truly understand, what humanity is. We are a species that has never needed to evolve beyond being dangerous, because we've mastered the art of making everything around us dangerous instead.
Even the most peaceful human
Rodriguez added quietly.
carries this knowledge. It cannot be separated from us.
Klzek's translator struggled to find the right modulation for his response.
And you live like this, surrounded by potential weapons?
Chen smiled. It didn't reach his eyes.
Ambassador, we don't even notice it anymore. That's perhaps the most important thing for the Conclave to understand. To us, these aren't disguised weapons. They're just ordinary objects. The weaponization is merely a skill we all possess.
Rodriguez held up a simple writing stylus.
This is just a pen to us until it needs to be something else.
Our cities
Okafor explained.
are not armories in disguise to us. They're just cities, filled with tools and objects that make our lives easier, more comfortable, more efficient.
But they're also,
The Morrigan representative began.
Yes,
Chen nodded.
they're also filled with potential weapons to those who see them that way. That potential is always there, whether we acknowledge it or not.
A tense silence filled the chamber before the Dorsani collective mind posed a question.
If common objects serve as weapons, what purpose do your actual dedicated weapons serve?
The three human ambassadors exchanged another glance.
Perhaps
Chen said carefully.
that would be best discussed in a separate security briefing.
We have shown you the tools of our civilians.
Rodriguez added.
Our actual military technology is considerably more specialized.
This subtle reminder that everything demonstrated represented only the improvised weapons of untrained civilians, not their professional military capabilities, sent a visible ripple of unease through the chamber. The demonstration concluded and the human delegation returned to their position, leaving the chamber in contemplative silence. Many representatives were having their gifts carefully contained by security drones. Others were quietly submitting urgent communications to their homeworlds. 3 cycles later, the Galactic Conclave approved Earth's petition for membership by unanimous vote. The official reason cited was unique cultural perspectives that would enrich the Conclave's diversity. The unofficial reason, discussed only in secure channels, was far simpler. No one wanted to risk refusing a species that had evolved to see weapons everywhere, in everything, while appearing to see nothing unusual about this at all. During the formal acceptance ceremony, the Conclave presented humans with their own traditional gifts, advanced technologies, artistic creations from various worlds, and scientific instruments. Chen accepted these with appropriate diplomatic gratitude, but couldn't help noticing how carefully designed each gift was. Smooth edges, non-detachable parts, materials that couldn't be easily repurposed. It seemed the Conclave had learned its lesson well. As the humans departed from that first historic meeting, Ambassador Okafor accidentally dropped something, a small soft object that bounced across the floor. A junior Phaedon aide moved to return it.
No need.
Okafor smiled.
Just a stress ball. Squeeze it when you're tense. Completely harmless.
The aide watched him walk away, then carefully placed the stress ball in a containment field. Analysis later confirmed it contained enough kinetic absorbing compound to, if thrown with sufficient force, shatter reinforced glass. The humans had made their point. Everything was a tool, everything was a weapon, and they alone decided which it would be at any given moment. 2 standard cycles after Earth's admission to the Conclave, a minor border dispute erupted between the Xanthorian Expanse and the Morrigan Collective. As tensions escalated toward military action, both parties received the same diplomatic message from Earth's delegation. The United Earth government would like to offer its services as a neutral mediator in this conflict. The dispute was resolved within days. The Conclave would never look at a human or anything a human touched quite the same way again.